There are a lot of, shall we say, former Soviet bloc countries out there that are looking at what is going on in Ukraine and going, hmm, is now a good time to assert our freedom? Because there are a lot of nation states in the Baltic, in sort of Asia, these former sort of US Soviet bloc states that are looking at this, who for years have lived under the threat of Russia saying, hey, you will do this, or you will sign this treaty, or you will do as you will say, or else we'll just invade. And now, with the state of struggle going on in Ukraine and Russia failing so much, it is of no surprise that a lot of these former Soviet states are now going, is this the time? Because if Russia is concentrated that much in Ukraine and is losing that much, it cannot afford for another conflict to pop up elsewhere. It cannot be, seen to be having to deal with something else elsewhere. So there are a lot of these other former Soviet bloc countries who are very, very much under the thumb of Russia, going, is it time we sort of started to use this opportunity to throw around our influence? Because the last thing Putin wants to do is, commit to another, special operation in another country at another point. He cannot afford the resources, especially with the sanctions going on that are very, very much crippling the Russian economy. So today we're going to have a look at this because it is some very, very interesting analysis. And I think the more this goes on in Ukraine, the more and more of these countries are going to think, well, is it our time to start asserting our freedom as well? So, as always, before we do get into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. There is also the YouTube thank you link you can use as well. That's also down below. And of course, there is the YouTube subscription button as well called the Pony Club, where you can join the Pony Club and you get badges, emojis, and whatnot stuff that you can use in our live streams. So, over we go today to The Guardian with their analysis on this of the title of Former Soviet States Eye Opportunities as Russia Struggles in Ukraine. The rout of the Russian army in Ukraine's Kharkiv region seems likely to be a turning point in Kiev's battle to kick Russian troops out of the country. But it may also cause a much broader fallout for Moscow in the wider region, as the former Soviet countries witness what appears to be the limits of Moscow's capabilities. The power of the Russian flag has been declining considerably, and the security system across the former Soviet space does seem to be broken, said Lawrence Burrows, the Associate Fellow at Chatham House. This week, with the attention focused across the Black Sea in Ukraine, and fighting on the border between Azerbaijan and Armenia killed about 100 troops after Azerbaijan shelled several towns in Armenia, with both sides accusing each other of these provocations. Analysis has said that Azerbaijan has decided to test the waters while Russia was struggling in Ukraine, and Russia has traditionally supported Armenia in its territorial dispute with Azerbaijan over these 3 decades since the fall of communism. Azerbaijan does feel quite confident in its geopolitical moment, and particularly right now during the Ukraine counteroffensive, said Tom DeWall, the former senior fellow at Carnegie Europe. This seems absolutely aimed at Russia as much as Armenia, testing Russia's commitments to defend Armenia. Russia said that it had brokered a ceasefire on Tuesday, that both parties had agreed to the full deployment of a Russian peacekeeping force as part of the truce to end the full-fledged war in 2020. Armenia has appealed for military backup from the Collective Security Treaty Organization, a Russia-dominated mutual defense pact, but Moscow is reluctant to intervene directly. Russia is clearly equivocating on both because of the massive overstretch in Ukraine and because it doesn't want to pick a fight with Azerbaijan at this point, said DeWall. Separate clashes have also broken out on the border between Kurdistan and Tajikistan on Wednesday morning, killing one border guard and wounding over 5 others, according to local reports. While one specific incident does not relate to the war in Ukraine, though Russia has traditionally had good relations with both countries, analysis does say that the Russian invasion has completely changed the balance of power in the region, that for years has been a battleground for Russian, Chinese, and Western influence, and has put Russia on the back foot. In January this year, when the wave of protest rocked Kazakhstan, the Russian President Vladimir Putin approved deployment of the Russian-led CDO task force into this country. The mission was brief and did not engage any combat, but it was enough to shore up the presidency of Kazam Jormat Torbekov, that's how you say it. With the Kazakhstan's leader now in debt to Moscow for help, Russian forces keeping the peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and the Kremlin massing troops on the border with Ukraine, Putin seemed to have put more influence more than ever on the Soviet space. Much of that, of course, has unraveled during the course of Putin's bloody special military operation in Ukraine. In particular, in the last weeks, Ukraine's rapid advance has thrown Putin's war plans into complete disarray. We are seeing the collapse of Russia's reputation as a security patron, which is happening both on the material level with the massive force concentration on Ukraine, but also on the subjective level with the reputation of Russia's security guarantees, said Boaz. Across the region, in the invasion of Ukraine, it has shocked and worried the Russian allies, but has also emboldened them to take a tougher stance with Moscow. Kazakhstan, traditionally a very close ally, infuriated many in Moscow by trying to remain neutral over Ukraine, refusing to recognize the Russian control over the territories in eastern Ukraine, but promising not to aid Russian efforts in circumnavigating international sanctions. This led some in Moscow to question Kazakhstan's sovereignty, including the former Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev, who called it an artificial state in a post he later deleted. But while Kazakhstan does remain very wary of the long-term threats from its bigger neighbor and supposed ally, others are already ready to step in and fill the gap. On Wednesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Kazakhstan on what was thought to be the first trip abroad since the start of the COVID pandemic. We will continue and resolutely to support Kazakhstan in protecting its independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, it said in a statement that seemed partly designed to rebuke that of the Kremlin. On Thursday and Friday, Xi and Putin will attend the summit of leaders in the state of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a loosely regional security grouping in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. The leaders of India and Iran are also expected to attend, and the summit will prove a chance for Putin to try and demonstrate that they are still a major world powers sympathetic to Russia. But this is also a chance for other countries in that region to highlight what remains of Russia as a strong regional player, and a power dynamic has now shifted. On Wednesday, Russia designated one of Tajikistan's opposition parties as a terrorist movement, a move which Moscow has long resisted, but which will help the country's dictatorial government have any of its citizens it wants to extradite to Russia. Many Central and Asian countries do see that Russia needs them now more than ever before, and they are trying to squeeze as much as they can, said Turma Umtov, the fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. So as you can see, this war in Ukraine is going to have other consequences elsewhere, not only across the Asia, but down in the Baltics. All these places, all these former Soviet countries are going, Russia's not as strong as it used to be. All these threats they've been facing for years, and the guarantees that Russia has had of will defend your security. Just look at Kazakhstan. Putin came in, shored up the presidency, made sure that this guy did not fall to a potential revolution with Russian troops, and then when Ukraine happened, did not back him, did not send any troops, did not send any financial aid, and has not even helped him try to circumnavigate any international sanctions. And then you've obviously got that quote from the former, other guy saying, yeah, we're questioning there, which, by the way, is exactly the same rhetoric they used against Ukraine, saying that it's just a made-up state, an artificial state. And then you have China coming in just going, yeah, I don't think so, Russia. So bear in mind, it is, I think, plain for all to see. This isn't just, as some people have put it, Russia's Vietnam. They've already sort of had that in Afghanistan, you know. Um, I think this is something much larger we are seeing. I think this is really the true fall of Russia, not only just as its proclamations to be a superpower, but maybe even damaging its reputation as a regional power. So, above all, I think there are going to be some very interesting developments along this line, and especially amongst even what Russia considers its closest allies and supporters. So, yeah, very interesting times indeed. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a more update link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.